Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, no charts today. Today's Gemara.
What?
Today's Gemara without any diagrams. I think we're getting back to, I don't know how long it's going to be for. Okay, just a few points I left out yesterday. So just to go back, the Gemara had a question about the subject. The title of yesterday's Gemara was about the strength of the yavam on the property of the yevama on her estate before they do yibum. After they do yibum, it's his regular wife, but and Yerush and everything. But during that period, that's the question. And the Gemara had a machlok, had a steer in the Mishnah. The beginning says he has no control over it as far as her selling it, and then it's mashma that he does have suffer control, and that was if she died. That was the most question. We ended up with 4 to rest, and let's go back to the last two. Abai said, and then the bottom of the days, that the issue was, where am I doing over here? 1 second, please. Yeah, Abai said on the bottom line over here that, 1 second, that depends when she got the estate. How did she get the estate? If she got it while she was already in that state of Yibum, Shemeres Yavam, that her husband had already died, then the Yavam doesn't have any jurisdiction over it. But if she had gotten it while she was still married to the first husband, then it's a stronghold, and the Yavam does have a suffix, and that's why it's Yachloku or Chazaka. So the top line over there on the Flam test, I didn't have it shot yesterday, so just say it in simple words without Rashi exactly. But Yado ki Yada would mean that they both have equal strength. And simple words of the Gemara, you can learn that. No, Rashi goes that the Yavam is less. But just to read the words of the Gemara, Yado ki Yada, that the husband is the same strength as the wife. Since she when she inherited it while they were married, and therefore the Yavam also has the same equal strength, and that's what the Gemara talks about. That maybe that's why it's a suffix who has jurisdiction over it. That was the Mishnah of Yachloku or Chazaka. Rava argued and said no, that when it was under the jurisdiction of the husband while she inherited, while she was married, so then Yada Adifam Yada. And here, as far as the Yavam, he should go to the Yavam because he should be the same as the husband, and the same way that the husband would have gotten it, complete jurisdiction. So then also the Yavam, and it should be everything to him. So that's why Rava argued. A few lines later, after that, the Gemara says, Papa, these are the places that I was fuzzy yesterday. The Papa says, Yukid Masis and Kavasa Davai, that the Mishnah is mashma like a Abaye. The Rabbi afterwards said about Mamar, that the case of the Mishnah, the Rabbi answers the steer in the Mishnah that the beginning is talking about without Mamar, and with Mamar, then he does get some hold on to the Nechasim. The Gemara says, the Yukid Masis is Kavasa Davai, because it says Nechasim and Nechasim V'yosim. So, the simple shot in the Gemara in the Mishnah is no difficulty. In the Chasim and the Chasim Yosim was just another way of saying Nechsim Ulug. We said that a woman, when she brings a property into the marriage, there's 2 ways that she could do it. Either it's called Son Barzel, that they estimate assess how much it's worth, and the husband obligates himself to pay back that amount if he divorces or he dies. And no matter what happens to the property, he is as if he bought it, then he owes her money. And Nechsim Ulug means that the care and the principal stays hers, and he gets the profits from it as long as they're married. So that's the Pashup Shat. And the Chasim V'yosim just means that the property comes in with her, goes out with her, it's her property. But the Gemara seems to say, like a drush, that it sounds like in this particular case that it came in and went out. So if you say that she inherited it while she was married to the husband, so the words make sense, that it came in with her, and when the husband died, it left with her, because both things happened already. She came in and she left. But if it says, if we're talking about that she inherited while she was after the husband that died, and she got it while she was just Shemeres Yavam, then the words wouldn't make sense because it's always the same status. It didn't come in and go out. But the Gemara ends off that the Gemara did say that it's Kasha Meis Mesa, that the words of the Mishnah, there's a Kasha on Abaye, and this is the same Gemara's Kasha that I had before, that Rabbi had Anula, the same Kasha, that how come the Mishnah, when it wanted to talk about the hold of the Yavam on the Nechasim, it spoke about that she died, and not a question who Yarshin said. It could have stayed while she's alive, and the question was, when does the Yavam get this supposed to eat the Paris, which only Rabbi had a teres for that. Rabbi said the second shot, he said that when she's alive, so then she's in Suffolk Mosim Devada, after she dies, then both of them are a Suffolk. So those are more or less the problems we had yesterday. I hope that it got cleared up a little bit. The Gemara at the end, we said already, we learned at the end of the Gemara that once he marries her, once the Yavam marries her, then if he wants a divorce, he just needs to get, you don't need Chalitza, also he can marry her back. It's not called that he's marrying his brother's wife without a mitzvah. And the Gemara ended off this problem we had yesterday, that it says that he's not chayiv the ksuba, and it says why the first white line, and he didn't ask for the wife, they gave it to him, so they doesn't have to give ksuba. But then the Gemara ended off more than the Mishnah says that if the first husband didn't have any nechasim, so then there does have to be from the yevamos estate, he has to pay ksuba in order that it shouldn't be easier for her to divorce. They'll have to pay a price for the divorce. They has to pay ksuba. That makes it harder for him to divorce her. So we didn't understand yesterday that if so then what does the Mishnah mean to say that he doesn't have to get ksuba from his own estate? Right away you say that he does have to. So I noticed afterwards, Taisa asked the kasha. There's Taisa over here, and he says, if any way that if the first husband doesn't have any property, you do take from the second husband. So what does he gain by saying that it wasn't on his? What does it mean? What does that mean? So Taisa has a few pshatim, or at the end he says one pshat, nafkamina im girsha. If you already would have divorced her, and then the property of the first husband would have been ruined, she has no right to collect from his property. Means Taisa finds nafkamina to answer the kasha, but the Taisa asked the kasha that if you said, what was bothering us yesterday, Taisa does ask that you do take away the estate of the yavam to pay the ksuba if he divorces her, if there is no estate of the husband. So what does it want me to say? Taisa says an example. One answer at the end, he says, so once he divorced her, so it was difficult for him to divorce her because he's going to lose the property. So that you gain. And now, after he divorced her, so then one of the sadas of the mace, got ruined. So then he doesn't have to pay from his own because there was a sada of the mace, and that the Gemara says that if he has a sada, if he has an estate, so then you don't take from the yavam. So therefore, he did gain. He did have the difficulty to divorce her because when he was divorcing her, he had both the estate of the yavam and also the estate, his own estate. Okay, that was yesterday's Gemara. Now we start a whole new subject, a whole new Mishnah.
So that's why we do it. We make it a little tougher for him.
We make it tough for him that he should, right. And that's the regular ksuba, is to make it difficult for the husband that it shouldn't be easy for him to divorce. New subject altogether. Mitzvah b'gadol liyabeh. We had this Mishnah. We had these three words. We had once upon a time also before, and Daf Chav Daled that said the same words, but here it says more. Mitzvah b'gadol liyabeh. We had the pasuk says the simple pshat. The pasuk might have meant only the firstborn. That the Gemara said before doesn't only mean the firstborn. The oldest. What is that? This is Lamed Tes. Lamed Tes, right, 39. So mitzvah b'gadol liyabeh. The mitzvah is lachatchila. We'll see lachatchila for the oldest of the brothers to be miyabeh. Not if he's the firstborn, even if he's not the firstborn, the oldest one who's available, that's the mitzvah. We saw at Mishnah before on Daf Chav Daled that if one of the younger ones jumped ahead, so then it also takes effect. But the mitzvah is that the oldest one should do the yibum. What if he didn't want? So the oldest one didn't want to do yibum. So then you ask the other brothers. Malcham al kol achin. Rashi and Daf Chav Daled says that you go in the order of their age, and you ask each one if they want to be miyabim. And if all of them didn't want, you go back to the oldest one and you tell them you're the one that has to make the decision. You're the mitzvah upon you. So
the mitzvah of there is a mitzvah of chalitza.
If there's no yibum, then there's chalitza.
But it's considered a mitzvah.
It's called yeah. But we're going to have today the subject about which one is better, mitzvah yibum or chalitza. That's going to be a subject also today.
It says mitzvah
or chalitza. Mitzvah. You have the mitzvah. It's upon you. Oh chalitza yabim. As if there be only one. If there be only one brother available, then we tell them yibum. If not, then chalitza. That's also considered a mitzvah. But here the chiddush is that you go to the oldest one and you give him the ultimatum. First, you go to the younger ones. If he didn't want to do yibum, we'll see the Gemara. Exactly, the Gemara has more than we think. But that's a simple reading would have sounded like he didn't want to do yibum. So you ask the other ones if they want to. And if they don't want to, you go back to him and say you have to do either yibum or chalitza. Here Rashi says the word katan here doesn't mean just the younger one. It means a katan. He's below age. He's a minor. And he says wait until. He says, don't force me to do chalitza or yibum. There's one of the brothers is still below age. Wait till he grows up, and then maybe he'll do yibum or chalitza or yibum. Or he says, oh, there's an older brother that's now here right now. He's overseas. Wait till he comes back, and he'll do yibum. Don't force me, so we don't wait for him. Oh, cheresh or shota. Maybe there's another one of the brothers that's a cheresh or a shota, and he says, wait until he gets healed, and then he'll do yibum. Whatever's right now, we have the possibility that someone should do yibum or chalitza. If he doesn't want, so we tell him you're the oldest, you're the one who has to make the decision, and there's nobody else that's willing right here now able to do yibum, so we don't push it off to anybody else. You're the one who has to do it.
What's the big deal? I don't know.
Of what?
To do chalitza. I mean,
Yeah, what's the big deal?
No, but
He's holding her up.
Yes.
She can't get married.
Yes, but the simple pshat in the Mishnah would be talking about that there's a possibility of Yibum, that there is a possibility somebody might do Yibum. So that's how it goes. First, you ask the oldest one if he wants to do Yibum, and if not, you go down the line. If not, then there's a question of doing Chalitza, and he still says maybe there's a younger brother's going to grow up and he'll do Yibum. Maybe somebody overseas is going to come back, he'll do Yibum. So you say, no, right now there's nobody to do Yibum, so do Chalitza. But that's how the simple Mishnah would read. The Gemara is going to talk about a possibility, maybe Chalitza might be better. Let's continue the Gemara. But the Mishnah alone reads well. The Gemara starts, Itmar, Bias Katan v'Chalitza's Gadol. The word Katan here doesn't mean a minor, it means a younger brother. You have a choice of doing Yibum of a younger brother and Chalitza of the older brother. The older brother would agree to, the oldest brother would agree to do Chalitza, but he doesn't want to do Yibum. And the younger brother is even willing to do Yibum. What would we say? Anybody opinion?
Yeah,
Well,
Yibum is better.
we would think Yibum is better even of a younger brother. And the Gemara is not so simple. The Gemara, it's a shit in the Gemara that says that it's better for the oldest one to do something, even the other one should do Chalitza better than the younger one should do Yibum. That's going to be a machlokus now. Itmar, Bias Katan.
But the cotton can't do it now. You have to wait.
So I'm saying Katan here. The word Katan here doesn't mean a minor. The word Katan means a younger brother. In the Mishnah before, when it says Talab Katan, this word over here, the Talab Katan meant that he's a minor because it's actually Yagda till he grows up. But this word here means a younger brother and an older brother. Everybody's
The
bar
minor
mitzvah.
can't do it anyway.
Right.
You have to wait.
Right. But here we talk about that you have a couple of brothers and you have they're old. One is 30, one is 40. You know, you have everyone's already or an adult, but one is older than the other. And the Mishnah says it's a mitzvah for Gadol, that the oldest one is a mitzvah, he should do it. How about if you have a younger one who's willing to do Yibum and an older one is willing to do Chalitza? The way we read the Mishnah, it says Beferish that the older one would have been willing to do Chalitza. We would have thought only you tell him he doesn't want to do Yibum. And he asked the young one to do Yibum, even though the older one would do Chalitza. But it's not so simple to read the Mishnah like that. It could be that Chalitza of the older one is better than the Yibum of the younger one. That's how the Gemara starts. Right. And Allah is going to be none like this. The Allah is going to be the way you thought, that the Yibum of the younger one is better than the Chalitza of the older one. But the Gemara at this point doesn't think so. These two are wrong, but doesn't say who holds what. One of them says that the Yibum of the younger one is better. You see a little number over there, that's how we pass him, that the Yibum of the younger one. But one says no, that the Chalitza of the older one is better than the Yibum of the younger one. Man the Omar, Bias Katan Adifa, the mitzvah be Yibum. Like you said, that there's a mitzvah to do Yibum better than Chalitza. So therefore, even if he's younger, it's better to do Yibum. Man the Omar Chalitza is Gadol Adifa, but Makum Gadol, Bias Katan Laptlumi. That since the mitzvah is the oldest one, so when the oldest one is around, so his Chalitza is better than even the Yibum of the younger one. So Machlokas. Now the Gemara is going to look around for proofs from our Mishnah. So it says in our Mishnah, if he doesn't want, you go to the other brothers, and if they don't want, you go back to the oldest one. Tanan, that the oldest one didn't want, you go to the other brothers. What didn't he want?
What he didn't want, yeah.
I'm asking, what did he not want? What did he not want?
Yibum.
So that's it. My love, lo and he's willing to do chalitza, and still it says, even though he's willing to do chalitza, but since he doesn't want to do yibum, go to the younger brother. That means that you prefer that the younger brother should do yibum, and rather than the older brother to do chalitza. And to do yibum, so you see that yibum of the younger one is better than chalitza of the older one. But the Gemara says no, it's not muchach. Lo doesn't necessarily mean that. That means you read the Mishnah. Mitzvah b'gadol liyavim, lo ratza what? Lo ratza to do anything means that you ask the way according to this opinion. First, you ask the older one, you want to do yibum? He says no. Then we ask him, you want to do chalitza? Means before we go to the other brothers, we ask him, do you want to do chalitza? If he wants to do chalitza, we tell him do chalitza. We don't even ask the other brothers. Maybe his chalitza is better than everybody else's yibum. That's what this Gemara is going to say. So that's how he learns the Mishnah. But then the Gemara continues. The Mishnah continues. It says here. It says, let's just highlight this over here. It says maybe a different color. It says here lo ratza. Then it says again lo ratzu. Here it said that you went to the oldest one and he didn't want, you go to the other brothers, and if they don't want, you go back to the oldest one. Yeah. So if this lo ratza was saying means not that he didn't want to do only yibum, he didn't want to do chalitza either, because if you want to do chalitza, we tell him to do it. If so, this lo ratza also means he didn't want to do either one. They didn't want to do the yibum or chalitza. So now they're all in the same package. No one wants to do anything. So how come you go back to the oldest one? If everyone doesn't want to do yibum or chalitza, why do you go back to the oldest one? The more answers, to force him. It means if there's nobody that wants to do it, so we're going to force somebody to do it. So then the Gemara says, so then force them. Why do you force him more than them? No one wants to do anything. No, even no chalitza. So why?
Because he's originally the first choice.
He's the first
You
choice.
go back to you would go back to him.
So that's what the Gemara seems to say. Even the mitzvah of a lady day rami or the day kafiran. Since it's his chalitza, it seems his chalitza is better. Like the Gemara said it before, his chalitza is even better than everybody else's yibum. So the Gemara, the kasha is a little difficult. What does the Gemara think? Rashi says that maybe just for that mitzvah, maybe it's not good to make trouble. The younger ones are here already in front of us, so we're not going to go to the oldest one. So Gemara says no, that it is his chalitza is better than everybody else's chalitza. So we do force him. Okay, the Gemara tries for more proofs. The Gemara still didn't prove the point. It says over here that the Mishnah continued that if he said wait for the one of them, here the word here means minor. Here the katana here means a minor. There's a minor. It's a 12-year-old boy. Wait until he gets older, so you don't listen to him. Tanan, tala b'katana sheyagdel ein shomalo. V'ibiyas katana difa amayin shomalo. Ninta dilma gadol umiyabing. If you be the more is attacking the other way now. If the yibam of the katan of the younger brother is better than the chalitza of the older brother, so how come you don't wait? If the younger brother, the minor, might do yibam when he grows up, so why not wait? Maybe he'll grow up. Maybe he'll do yibam. If the chalitza of the oldest one is better, just if somebody, just if he doesn't want to. The case is that the oldest one doesn't want to do chalitza either. So then we would take the yibum of the younger one and not force the older one. And then we can understand that we're not going to wait for the younger one to grow up. But if the yibum of the younger one is really better than the chalitza of the older one, so why not wait till he grows up? Maybe when he grows up, he's going to want to do yibum. But the Gemara says that's not the point. So maybe it says on the side. The Mishnah says also you don't wait for one of the older brothers, even the oldest brother you don't wait for if he's not presently here. And over there, surely if he comes back, it's only going to be better. It'll be the best chalitza, it'll be the best yibum even maybe. So how come you don't wait? That's not the point. The point isn't because he won't do better. He would do better if he comes here. We don't wait. We don't push off the mitzvah like don't push off a mitzvah that's possible to do. Be zoriz or lacritous. Don't postpone, procrastinate. So there's no proof from the Mishnah. At this point, the Gemara leaves the machlokes, and this first version said that there's machlokes of Rechon and Bishul and Levi if the chalitza of the oldest is better than the yibum of the younger, and the younger brother. And the Gemara leaves it as a machlokes. There was no proof. We would try to bring proofs from the Mishnah. We can read the Mishnah both ways. There is no proof. We're not going to pass like this version. The Gemara goes on to say a second version, and we're going to talk about that. Is the Amri others have a different version in the machlokes between Reb Rechon and Rish Lakish, like everybody said. Surely the yibum of the younger one is better than the chalitza of the older one. That's what we pass in. That if the younger one wants to do yibum, that's surely better. So when you go down the line, you don't ask the first one, do you want to do yibum? And he says no. You don't ask him, do you want to do chalitza? We go on to the second one. Do you want to do yibum? We'd rather get a yibum of the younger one than to get the chalitza of the older one. So what is the machlokes? Kifligi b'chalitzas katan. Is there any preference of the chalitza of the older one than the chalitza of the younger one? It means you're not doing yibum. No one wants to do yibum, but there's going to be a chalitza. Is there a preference to get the oldest one to do chalitza better than the younger one? And that was a machlokes. One says that the chalitza of the gadol is better than the chalitza of the younger one, and the other one says no difference. This shows it's not going to be better over here. In the first version, we talked about yibum of the younger one. There was a tzad to say that the yibum of the younger one is better than the chalitza of the older one. But here there's surely no tzad to say that is better, but it's equal. That's a machlokes. Is there any preference of the chalitza of the oldest than the chalitza of another brother? That same way the mitzvah of the yibum was a mitzvah that the oldest one should do it. So too the chalitza. But the other one says no, only as far as yibum. There's only a preference to have the oldest one if he's going to do yibum. A yibum of the oldest one is better than the yibum of a different brother. And Rashi before says even according to age, as the older he is, the better. But if you're doing chalitza, then there's no preference to have the older than the younger. Now again, the Gemara tries to bring proofs from this. Tanan, la rotzu chosin eitzel gadol. It says that you ask the first one, he didn't want. You go to the rest of the brothers, and if they don't want, you go back to the first one. My love, la rotzu liyabim elo lachlots. The Gemara first understands that he went to the first one to do yibum, he didn't want, he went to the rest of them. and they all would have agreed to do chalitza. Like Moshe said before, what's the big deal to do chalitza? So they all would have been willing to do chalitza. And it says that if they don't want to do yibum, you go back to the oldest one. Why? Why do you go back to the first one? Everyone's willing to do chalitza. No one's willing to do yibum. Everyone wants to do chalitza. So why do you go back to the oldest one? Shmami, no, chalitza is gadol adifa. It must be the reason we go back to the oldest one is because his chalitza is better than the rest of the chalitza. Everyone would do chalitza. So the Gemara says, lo ratzu, lo lachlos, lo liyabem. That the case is no one wants to do anything. That nobody wants to do yibum or chalitza. It is a bit, just to answer Moshe's question, it is a bit of a disgrace to get chalitza. They're saying that he's bad. He doesn't want to build his brother's house. And she spits. It takes off his shoe. That's all a kind of a disgrace to him. So I could just understand why people would rather not do it. But that's to answer the question that there is something involved. But anyway, it's a mitzvah, right? Okay. Yeah, you're right. On that point, you're right. Yeah. And he's giving her freedom that she's able to marry. But you can see why people would rather not do it. Okay, but the Gemara is saying here, if you understood the case was everyone would be willing to do chalitza, and no one's willing to do yibum, so why go back to the first one? They're all the same. It must be you go back to the oldest one because his chalitza is better than the rest of the chalitza, and that will be a right to that mandiyama. So the Gemara says no, that's not the case. Lo rotzu, lo lachlos, lo liyabim. That nobody wants to do chalitza either, and that's why you go back to the oldest one. If we'd rather get somebody willingly to do chalitza. Again, what's the Gemara saying now? That there is no preference of the oldest one over the youngest one. If the younger one would be willing to do chalitza, we would tell him go ahead. We don't have a preference for the older one. But if they don't want to do either, so then we go back to the oldest one. If the case is that the oldest one also doesn't want to do chalitza, he's the same as them. The same way they don't want to do chalitza, he also doesn't want to do chalitza. That's how you read the Mishnah. So no one wants to do yibum or chalitza, so why are you forcing him? And here the kasha is a little bit stronger than the first version, because here there is no mile. Before Moshe said that the chalitza of the older one is better. That's why if no one wants to do anything, you go back to the first one, you say you got to do something. But over here, we're saying that as far as chalitza goes, there is no preference to anybody. So why are you forcing him? Why are you sticking a finger at him? You're going to force him. So the force them. So here the Gemaras have to be explained a little different than before. It doesn't mean that there's more mitzvah by him, because now the Gemara is saying that there is no mitzvah more by him. So why are you going to him? It seems because you have to force somebody. So you have to grab somebody. You can't force 1 out of 5. You look at all the 5 brothers and say, we're forcing you. Who are you forcing? You have to pick one. Since Yibam would have been his mitzvah, and no one's doing Yibam, no one's doing Chalitza, so we go back to him to say he should do Chalitza, even though there's no real preference. You don't get a better Chalitza by forcing him, but you have to pick somebody. So you pick the oldest one. Tashma, the Gemara is still trying to prove it. It says, that if the one who is here, the oldest one, he says there's even the older brother that's overseas, wait till he comes back, maybe he'll do. So you don't listen to him, you say right away to do. So if there's a preference to have the oldest one, say he says, I'm not the oldest. There's an older brother that's overseas. He's going to come and his is better. Why force me? If they're all the same, okay. But if there's a preference to do a better chalitza, so wait until he comes back. So the Gemara says, no, you can't prove that anything from there, because in the other part of the Mishnah where it says that, here we're going according to Mandam, where it says that surely this version is saying that the Yibam of the younger one is better than the Chalitza of the older one, then how come you don't wait for the minor to grow up? Maybe he's going to do Yibam, and now we're going now that Yibam is better than the Chalitza of the older one. And more this case says, maybe not only is going to do Chalitza, maybe the oldest one is going to come back in the Yibam. So why don't you, and that surely is better. So why don't you wait? Must be. And the Kol Shui Mitzvah Lo Shina, and you don't wait. You don't wait, even though you can do a better mitzvah. Maybe if a better mitzvah might happen, you don't wait. That's the end of the Gemara. That's the end of the Gemara. So at the end of this Gemara, what do we have? We have the first version said that machlokes if might be better than the Yibam of a younger, and we don't pass like that version. We pass like this version over here, the second version, that surely the Bia of the younger one is better than the Chalitza of the older one. But as far as this machlokes, is there a preference to the Chalitza of the older one? So it remains a machlokes. And here it says there's ladifa. I think that there's maybe an issue. Also, the Gemara didn't prove it, and the poskim say, if possible, try to get the oldest one to do chalitza, but could be that halachically there's no better quality of the chalitza if the oldest one does it or not.
Yeah, the main thing is she gets it.
Yeah, but the question was: is there a preference as far as the mitzvah goes? Is it a better mitzvah? As far as the permission she gets to get married, there's no difference. If chalitza, anybody does chalitza is good. But the question was if there's a preference. Okay, so we finished the issue about that preference of the gadol and the katan, and as we said, the machlok we pass that the yivam of the younger one is better than the chalitza of the older one. But as far as chalitza, both of them are going to do chalitza. Is there any preference of the older one? So that seems to be as machlok in the Gemara, and we have no psak. So we do try to do the older one, but if not, then everyone knows that the younger one also would be good.
You see that the mitzvah of chalitza, their personal things comes before doing the mitzvah.
In which way?
Because like we said, it's like
it's a difficult thing to do.
So they don't want to do it.
So that
It's sad.
But we do force some if they're not going to.
She has to.
Yeah, because it could be that all of them are saying that they prefer not to, but then they're saying that they should have preferred. If they would do the mitzvah, they would care about it, so then they should have been willing to do it in order to release her. Okay.
We see that so many times with keeping that the husband holds up the wife and whatever because for whatever his pride or money for sure. And this goes on every day. It's very sad.
So this is a Mishnah in Bechoros, which is very surprising to me that it's not in the Yevamos. This Mishnah, everybody would have thought this would be the first Mishnah, but it's not a Mishnah in Yevamos at all. It says on the side, this is a Mishnah in Bechoros, and that's where the Mishnah is. And as far as I saw, it's not going to be a Mishnah over here. So
what's Bechoros about?
Bechoros is about Bechor, and it comes in Agav over there. The firstborn, it comes in Agav over there. Mamash Mishnah comes in Agav. So this Mishnah we would have thought is the first Mishnah in Yevamos. Which is better, Yibum or Chalitza? No, shouldn't that be a Mishnah Yevamos? But it's not. Here it is. And here's the sugya. Tanan, there's going to be another sugya later on. I saw that Kuftes is going to talk about it. Here, the Gemara is going to touch on it. Tanan Nasa, Mishnah Brachoros. Mitzvah Yibum, Kodem is Mitzvah Chalitza. Which one is better? Yibum or Chalitza? So the Mishnah says Yibum is better. Yibum is better than Chalitza. But Rishona, that's originally. Mitzvah Yibum was better than Chalitza. Why? Showing Miskavdim, L'Shem Shemayim, L'Shem Mitzvah. When they did Yibum, they did it for the purpose of the Mitzvah, in order to L'Hakim Shem L'Achiv, in order that his brother should have a continuation. And therefore, we say Yibum is better. You give a child to the brother. But Achshav, Shein Miskavdim, L'Shem Mitzvah, Amru, Mitzvah Chalitza Kodemus. But now, that not necessarily are they going to do L'Shem Mitzvah. That the Gemara is going to say maybe doing it because he wants a wife personally, or she's beautiful, whatever it might be, and they're not doing it for the Mitzvah of Yibum. So, on the contrary, Chalitza is better. Mitzvah Chalitza Kodemus to Mitzvah Yibum. That's Mishnah and Bechoros. And the Gemara is going to go into this to see that there's a machlokas maybe about it. Amar Rav, Ein Kofin, even though it says that it's better to do Chalitza than Yibum, are we going to force him to do the Chalitza? Rashi on the top says, let's put that Rashi over here. Amar Rav Ein Kofin, the Nichal Etarvayu, the Yibum, Ein Kofin also Lachlos. The name of Lav Mitzvah Machavni, Pagav Isser Eshach, Ali Boy Miyabim, he could. So even though it says that nowadays that not necessarily that people do the same mitzvah, and therefore it's better to do chalitza, but if he wants to, we're not going to force him to do dafka chalitza. Just agav here, Rashi and Taish talk about the whole issue about kofin. Do you force a chalitza? Do you force yibum on a woman if she doesn't want? Rashi and Taish talk about it over here. We have a case before about a muktashchin that if he's has diseases, boils, whatever, so then surely don't force her. The question was if that's dafka, she doesn't want for other reasons, could you force her? That seems to be machlokes Rashi. Taisus Rashi over here says that you don't force her. Taisus seems to say that you do force her, and means when a woman gets married, she already is agreeing to marry the brother-in-law if her husband dies without children. So that's the sugya over here. We're not going to go into the details, but here's the place where it's spoken about Rashi and Taisus. So here in Kofin, Rashi says that if both the husband and the woman and the man, both of them want to do yibum, even though we would tell them it's better to do chalitza, you don't force them; they could do yibum. When a case of yibum would come in front of Rav, he would tell them, if you want, you can do chalitza. If you want, you can do yibum. Even though we said the Mishnah in Bukhari says it's better to do chalitza, but he didn't tell them. He said whatever you want to do, you could do. But Yidach Tal Rachmana, that the Torah hangs it on you. You could depend whatever you want to do. It says if the man doesn't want to do yibum, then he does chalitza. If you want to, you can do yibum. So even though there's a mitzvah to do chalitza better, we prefer the mitzvah of chalitza because maybe people are not machav l'shem mitzvah, but still if you want to, we don't force them, and even gives them the option. If you want to, you can do yibum. That was Rav. Rav Yehuda Saba and Kofin. Rav Yehuda also agrees that ain't Kofin him to do chalitza. If he wants to, he could do yibum. And the Gemara brings a proof how Rav Yehuda holds that, because with the asking Rav Yehuda begita the chalitza, the following. So there's a thing called a get chalitza. Get chalitza just means a document. The get is a document. That's how you make the divorce, with the document. Chalitza is not a document. Chalitza is the whole procedure, the protocol of the shoe and the spitting and the thing. But she does get a document to prove that she got chalitza. That's called the get chalitza. It means a document. It's not. It doesn't make the effect, but it's a document of proof that she got chalitza. And the Gemara is going to say the nusach, the words, the text that Rav Yehuda wrote in the get chalitza, and from there we're going to derive that he says either one is good. We're not looking for the point of the get chalitza. We're just looking that they gave him an option of doing a yibum if he wants to. So Rav Yehuda, this is the nusach that Rav Yehuda made up. This is the following. Maybe we'll highlight it. Eich. Ploni espas, ploni akrabas, yes, ploni. This is all the nusach of the get chalitza. All that is the words of the document. So it says that Ploni is Bas Ploni, there's Mrs. So and so. Akravis Yas Ploni Yevamo Kadamana, the Beidina. She brought Ploni, her brother-in-law, in front of us to the Bezdin. Vishnamodinu da Achua de Misnamayabaniu, and we recognize him that he's the brother of the dead husband from the father's side. The brothers on the father's side, they have to be a brother with a common father, not a common mother. That's not a yibum. And we told him, this is what the Gemara really wants over here. It's obviously abem yabem, v'lo itla leraglach yamina. We told him, if you want, do yibum, and if you don't want, then stick out your right foot. Ve'itla leraglach yamina, and he stuck out his right foot, means he didn't want the yibum, he wanted to do chalitza. V'shara sinei me'al ragloi, and she untied his shoe from his foot. V'yarkes ban pohi, and she spit in his face. It doesn't mean into his face, it means in front of his face. With saliva that was noticeable to the Bezdin. Means Bezdin has to see it. Has to be not a little bit of saliva, has to be enough that is noticeable on the floor. It says very alara, not in his foot, not in his face, on the floor. She spit in front of him on the floor, enough saliva that was seen to Bezdin. So, but the Gemara wants of all this is that they said it's obviously abem yabem. If you want to, you could do yibam, and that's what the Gemara would arrive. That even though it says that there's a mitzvah to do the mitzvah chalitza kodemes, nowadays people are not mechavan l'shem shemayim, so it's better to do chalitza, but we don't force it. Rav didn't force it. He said if you want to, you could do yibam, and Rav Yehuda also even in the get chalitza, it says they said we asked him if he wants to, he could do yibam if he wants, but he didn't want to, so he did chalitza. And the Gemara just continues once the Gemara brought down the nusach of the chalitza, get chalitza, so it says a little bit more. And there's another version. Some say Rav Yehuda said more than that. But they also wrote this. Vakrinu my tichsiv the sefer araisa de Moshe, and we made him read what it says in the Torah. That means that besides the untying the shoe and spitting, there's also that he's supposed to say what it says in the pasuk. That she says, "Me'en yavami lakim shev lachib b'Yisrael," and he says, how does he say? The whole pasuk goes back and forth. That he said, and he says, "I don't want to." So also in the get chalitza, it also says that third stage about saying the psukim. But that was a side point. It's not our subject. We just wanted the point that he has the option of doing yibum if he wants. The Gemara said before it goes further, it says a side point which it came in Agav, that it says in the star that we recognize that he's the brother of the mace. How do we this is what Ashtemodinu, we recognize him. How do we know? Ashtemodinu, how do we recognize him? Some say that you have to have testimony, it has to be witnesses that he's the brother. And some say you don't need mamish witnesses, it's enough to even have a relative, even a woman, you don't have to have mamish two witnesses to say who he is. If somebody comes, a relative, a woman, and says, probably even one is enough, you don't have to have two, and says that this is the husband's brother, prefer yibum, when they did L'Shem Shemayim, but now the people are not after doing L'Shem Shemayim, so we prefer to do Chalitza. But Rishon Shem Miskabel L'Shem Mitzvah, Mitzvah Sibum Kodemis, the Mitzvah Chalitza. Ba'achshav Shein Miskabel L'Shem Mitzvah Amru Mitzvah Chalitza Kodemis. That's the Mitzvah Sibum. That's all the Mishnah in Bechoros that we just brought down before. That nowadays it's preferable to do Chalitza. Amru Rabbi Barcham, Amru Rabbi Yitzchak. Chazru Loma Mitzvah Sibum Kodemis, the Mitzvah Chalitza. After that, there's a later stage. There's a later stage after the Mishnah that they said that Mitzvah Sibum is better again. Originally, Mitzvah Ibum was better, and then Chalitza is better, and then it says that nowadays again, Chazul Omar, that Ibum is better. So what happened? The generations got better. Usually we say the expression nowadays, Achshadori, sometimes you say it got better, but here the Gemara is saying Achshadori, the generation got better. If in the Mishnah's times already it said that we don't trust that doing it for L'Shem Mitzvah, they might be doing it for personal reasons. So did they get better nowadays? How come nowadays we say that Ibum is better? The Gemara says no. It's not a question about getting better, but Meikara Sabi Lak Abashol, or Sabi Lak Rabbanan. This is machlokes. Means the point if the person does Yibum without the Shem Mitzvah, is that a problem? So there's machlokes about it. So the Mishnah we said in Bechoros that says it's better, it's only if you mechavel the Shem Mitzvah. So that holds like Abashol. That holds that it's problematic if they're not going to do the Shem Mitzvah. But there's another opinion that says no difference what your kavanah is. You do the Mitzvah of Yibum even if his kavanah is for ulterior motives, it doesn't make a difference. So that's a machlokes. So so not that the Metzias changed, but halacha changed. That the Rabbanan at one point the Mishnah held that like Abashol, and therefore it's problematic if someone's going to do Yibum without the right intention. But then the Chachamim, their generation, they pass him like the Rabbanan who argue on Abashol and say that's not a problem to have a ulterior motive. So they go back to do Yibum. Yibum is inherently better. At first in the Mishnah held in Bechor sound like Abashol, and then later on in the Nachman Yitzchak's generation they held like the Rabbanan, the Tanya. Abashol. So this is a Bryce that's not a Mishnah. Abashol Omer, that if somebody that has relations with the Yevama for her beauty or because of Ishus the Pashut would mean as a marriage. It means it's personal marriage. He wants to have a wife, not because he wants to be making Shem Lacha B'Yisrael. He wants to be married, which is a good thing usually when a person is going to take a wife from a not a Yevama, but now that it's a sister-in-law and there's a problem only because of Yibum as a mother. That's what Rabbi Shal says. If he's doing it for his own personal marriage, there's a problem. The L'Shem Davar Achra, any other ulterior motive, it's as if he's meeting up with an Arab, it's his brother's wife, without such a mitzvah, because he's doing it for ulterior motives. For Kabani Le'enai, Leo's Havlad Mamzer, it's almost supposed to be a Mamzer, the fact that it's having relations with his brother's wife, not to the mitzvah. So that was the problem. The Mishnah held that the Mishnah in Bechor sound like Abashol, that since it is only if it's for the right motivation. If it's an ulterior motive, then it's Korv Lios of Lad Mam. Just that's why I said, don't do Yibum, no Chalitza. But Chachamim Omrim, Yevamo Yop Olam Mikol Malkum. The Chacham argue Abashol and say that he should have relations. That does make a difference what his intention is, and therefore, if Nachman Yitzchak's generation, they held like the Chachamim. So there's no difference, even if he has ulterior motive, it's a fine Yibum. Period. The more brings now a Brisa wants to know who's the author of the Brisa. Who's the author of the following Brisa? It says in the Brisa like this: Yevamo. Let's try to highlight it. Maybe it says Yevamo Yavo. Up before that, Yevamo Yavo Aleha Mitzvah. I'm sorry. Try it again. It wasn't coming out good. Yevama Yavo Aleha Mitzvah. Also no. Okay, good. Shabbatchil Hoysa Allah Bichlal Heter. Shabbatchil Hoysa Allah Bichlal Heter. Then Nesra, and then Chazir V'Hutra. What happened? That this woman was originally mutter, then she became maser, then she became mutter again. What happened? When was she mutter? Before her brother married her. Before his brother married her. The relationship between the brother-in-law and the sister-in-law. Before she got married, she was mutter like any woman. And then when his brother married her, she became maser. It's her brother's wife. And then his brother died. She became mutter with the yibum. You might think that she's as mutter as she was originally, as if she never would have been married. The pasuk says that it's a mitzvah. So let's see what that means. So the Gemara doesn't know how to read the brisa. The Gemara is going to say that there's two choices. The Gemara's issue is Man Tana Lo Tana Rabbanan. Who is the author of this brisa? Who's the author of the brisa that it says all this? Maybe I'll just highlight the rest of it also, just to make it clear what we're working on. The green is the brisa, and the Gemara wants to know who is the author of this brisa. We have a machlokes Rabbanan and Abba Shaul. Abba Shaul says it has to be dafka l'shem mitzvah with the right motivation, and Rabbanan say no motivation doesn't make a difference. Just marry her. So Mantana, who is the author? So the Gemara is going to say two pshatim over here. Amar Yitzchak bar Avdimi, Abba Shaul. Abba Shaul is the author of this brisa. It says you have to have the right motivation. The wrong motivation is bad. And how does the brisa read? V'chikama yevamo yavo aleha mitzvah. What does that mean? Shebetchila ha'isa aleh b'chlal heter ratzah l'shem noi konsa ratzah l'shem mishas konsa. Originally, before she was married to the brother, a woman, so he could have married her for whatever intention he wants. There's no definite intention he has to have. He could have married her for whatever purpose. She's beautiful, whatever it is. Nesra, when she became married to the brother, then she became Masa. Chazra v'hutra, now that the brother died, and now it's mutter again for him to marry her. You might think that it's back to the same situation, that we don't care what his intention is. Same way, if she would have never been married, he can marry her for any intention. So too now, we might think he can marry for any intention. So just to make this pointed out, that Rashi makes this is going to be the whole subject now. How do you read the word? That has to be with the intention of doing the mitzvah. Lim mitzvah. Not mitzvah, lim mitzvah. This is one pshat. This was Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi's pshat. Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi said that the brisa is coming to say that he has to have the intention of mitzvah, which means it goes according to Abba Shaul. Rava, this is going to be the other pshat. This is going to be Rava's pshat. Rava says the pshat afilu ten Rabbanan. The brisa also goes according to Rabbanan. How's that? They want to say we don't care what his intention is. This is how the brisa reads. She was once upon a time allowed to marry her. What's a inakon? So that just meant that he didn't have to marry her. A regular girl, he doesn't have to marry. No chiv to marry her. So he wanted to marry her. He doesn't have to marry her. Nesra, then his brother married her. So he's not allowed to marry her anymore. And then the brother died. Chazir v'hutra. Now that the brother died, she became mutter. You might think that it went back to the original state. That means if he wants to, he could. If he doesn't want to, he doesn't have to. You might think he doesn't have to marry her. The Gemara jumps up. Doesn't make sense. He doesn't have to marry her. There's a connection. Means that there's a chi of yibum. She says a kuk of yibum. So you can't just say he doesn't have to do anything. She could get out of this with nothing. She could just go and marry somebody else. That you might think that he can do whatever he wants to. There's no difference. He could do yibum, do chalitza, the same way as originally he could have married her. He didn't have to marry her. So too now we could do yibum, chalitza, whatever he wants. Mitzvah. According to this, this is Rashi's stress over here, that it's a mitzvah to do yibum means in contrast to Rabbi Yitzchak bar Avdimi's pshat. His pshat was Yevamu Yavaleha lim mitzvah. That according this, the Rashi says a little bit vague what it's trying to say. It says that there was original state before she got married to anybody, and then while the brother was married to her, she was usher. And now that the brother died, you might think it goes back to the original state. No, it's different. So how do you read that? So according to Rabbi Yitzchak bar Avdimi, the first pshat says that first, when she was a penuya, he could have married her for any intention. And then she became mutter to marry when she became the brother's wife. And now that she became mutter, it isn't any more mutter for any intention. It has to be dafka for the intention of yibum. If not, then it's korv lios mamzer. That's one shot. That goes according to Abba Shaul. Rabbi says you can read it according to Rabbana, that originally he didn't have to marry her. She was a stomach girl. He wanted to marry her. He didn't want to marry her. And then she becomes usher when the brother married her. And then now that the brother died, you might think that again, he has a choice. He wants to do yibum, wants to chalitza. He doesn't have to marry. He doesn't have to marry. He can do chalitza. That's a mitzvah to do yibum. He could do chalitza, but it's not the same as before. Now there's a mitzvah to do yibum. So the Gemara has two pshatim in the brisa. There is a machlokas Abba Shaul and Rabbanan, and this brisa is not clear who it is. It can be read either according to Rabbanan or according to Abba Shaul. The Gemara is not so happy. Look, the brisa over there where it said this whole thing about mutter, asa, mutter. There's another example over there in the brisa, and we're going to try to figure out from there if it fits with the pattern that Rabbi Yitzchak bar Avdimi said. Over there it says another mitzvah that also mutter, asa, mutter. It says matzos te'achel b'makom kadosh. Rashi says this is talking about This is talking about the mincha. A korban mincha, it says it should be eaten matzah. It's not talking about Pesach. It's talking about korban mincha. It says it should be eaten matzos te'achel b'makom kadosh. I think it's talking about miluim. I didn't look into the pasuk. I'm not sure. No, maybe any mincha. A mincha is supposed to be eaten in the azara. It's kodesh kadashim, and the meal offering is supposed to be eaten in the makom kadosh. Matzos te'achel b'makom kadosh. It should be eaten in not as chametz. You can't make the mincha into a chametz the whole year round. Not do a Pesach. That the mincha has to be called menachas b'os matzah. That the mincha has to be made matzah. Mitzvah. And this device also says mitzvah. And again, it happened. First it was mutter, then also, then mutter again. Shebetchil ha'isalav b'chal heter, nesra, and then chazer v'hutra. That first was mutter, then also, then it was mutter again. Yachal tasad alter. Usually, you might think that's as mutter as was originally. Tamud loma matzos te'achel b'makom kadosh mitzvah. So the same price, the same pattern that I said by Yibum, mutter rasa mutter, and not the same as originally mutter. Call it mutter, aser, mitzvah. Don't think mutter, mitzvah, mutter, aser. It goes back to mutter. No, mitzvah. So Rashi says that here the case was that first it was, just to point out, the betchila means kodem shoktesha. Betchila means kodem shoktesha, and then nesra means mikish shoktesha, and then chazer v'hutra means bak Torah's chometz. That it was first before you makdish it, while it's kodesh, and after you makdish the chometz, and now the mincha becomes mutter to eat. So mutter, aser, and then not mutter, again, mitzvah. And the Gemara is going to try to figure out if this pattern is also going to work, whatever we started said in the Bereishit by Yibum, is also going to make sense over here. And now the Gemara tries to figure it out. Bishlam of the Rava, Rashi says the whole question is before when I said mitzvah or lim mitzvah. According to Rava, the point was mitzvah. Mitzvah not rishus. You have to do it. It's better to do it even than chalitza. According to Yitzchak Rav Dimi, the question was lim mitzvah. What was his intention? Does he have to have intention l'shem mitzvah? That's what the Gemara is going to try to figure out. Could you say that the intention l'shem mitzvah makes sense over here? Limits, what does limits for mean? That's what the Gemara tries. Bishlam of the Rava, the Muhammadi Rabbanan, he. So the Rava said the Mishnah, the Brayso before spoke about Yibum, mutter, aser, mitzvah is going to Rabbanan, and over there it meant a mitzvah to do Yibum more than chalitza. Here also we're going to say there's a mitzvah. By the case of the menachas, we also can read it. Matzos te'achel b'makom kadosh, mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to eat the menachas in the azara. Shebetchila ha'isalav b'chlal heter. First part, before it was hektish, it was mutter to eat it, like you're allowed to eat this flour, if it wouldn't have been kodesh. If he wanted to eat it, he could have eaten it. If he doesn't want to eat it, he doesn't have to eat it. Then Nesra, they have to take out the parentheses. This parentheses usually take out, but it seems to be a mistake. He's supposed to read this. Nesra, and then it became kodesh, and you're not allowed to eat it. And then Chazer v'hutra, after the Aktar Sakomas, it becomes mutter to eat. Yachal Tasal L'Tei Rishon, you might think that it goes back to what it was originally, and which would mean that if you want to eat it, eat it. You don't want to eat it, you don't eat it. You might think that the mincha, if you want to eat it, eat it. If you don't want, you don't have to. So the more jumps up again. It's possible there's no mitzvah to eat it. It says fish. It's mitzvah to eat the menachas. That the ones that are getting the kapara are supposed to eat it. Over there, so about the kohanim, it's mitzvah to kohanim to eat the mincha. How could you have that there's no mitzvah to eat the mincha? That it could have, you might have thought that of course someone has to eat it, but you wouldn't have thought that the Kohen who did the avodah of the mincha has to eat it himself. He has to be the one to eat it l'chatchila. Mitzvah. That it is a mitzvah l'chatchila for the Kohen who did the avodah of the mincha to eat it. So this is the pshat and the brayso according to Rava. Both things about Yibum and about mincha, both of them are saying that you might think that it's a rishus. No, it's a mitzvah. By Yibum it meant you might think it's no difference if it does Yibum or chaliza. No, it's a mitzvah to do Yibum. He has to l'chatchila do Yibum. Here too, that there's an issue about eating a mincha. Once upon a time, before it was a mincha, he didn't have to eat it, and then it became a mincha, and then it became the avodah of the kometz was done. Now someone's supposed to eat it. You might think, but you don't have to eat it. Anybody can eat it. Any kohen, kamash no, it's a mitzvah for the kohen who did the avodah to eat it. So the brayso would read well according to Rava. Both the case of Yibum and the case of mincha are a similar pattern. Ella, the Yitzchak Rav Dimi said over there that the Mishnah meant lim mitzvah. It didn't mean mitzvah. It meant lim mitzvah, that by Yibum you have to, the brayso meant you have to do it for the right kavanah. That just different than when he marries a woman, that he can have any kind of intention, motivation. Of course, it's not a holy thing to have all kinds of, but the Gemara says marries for money, for beauty is not such a good thing, but it's kosher. It's a kosher marriage. but you might think also by Yibum, no, he has to do lim mitzvah. How is that going to fit into the issue of mincha, that there's the issue of motivation? Is there any difference in the motivation when eating a mincha? And the issue is about lim mitzvah, what his intention was. What are the two kinds of eating it? Eating it for a mitzvah, not for a mitzvah. Is there any difference? Rashi points out that here there's no difference if you do it with l'shem mitzvah, not l'shem mitzvah. Eat a mincha, there's no difference if you're doing it. Even if you're eating it because you want to eat, it doesn't take away from the mitzvah of eating the mincha. There's no difference if it's l'shma, l'shem mitzvah, la l'shem mitzvah. Maybe we'll explain the way that you eat it. You're eating with appetite or eating it without an appetite. And it's coming to tell you, no, you have to eat it after with an appetite. Is that true? Achila gasa mishma achila. That it wouldn't you don't need a pasuk to say that you do it mitzvah masos te'achel. The fact that without any special drasha, of course you have to eat it. Since it says you have to eat it, so achila gasa is not considered eating. Achila gasa means that a person has no appetite at all, and he's just stuffing down his throat, but he doesn't have any kind of an appetite. So that doesn't need a pasuk to say that it's supposed to be the table. We know that's not called achila b'chlal. That if a person would eat achila gasa, how does it happen achila gasa in Kippur? It means that right at night he had a big meal right before this man, and then he goes in and he right away starts eating. He stuffs himself and he has no appetite. So he's potter. It's not called eating. It's not called lo suneh because it's not taking away the inoid. It wasn't. So here too, it's not called an achila. And you don't need a pasuk to say an extra pasuk to say it has to be b'te'avon. Ella, what might you say? What's a matzah ochla? What's a chametz ochla? That it's saying you might have thought that you could eat it chametz. That the same way the mincha before was a mincha, you could have eaten it as chametz. You might think after you marked there the chametz, you're allowed to eat it even chametz. That's not true. V'aksiv lo se'afar chametz chalkam nasati yisam meisha meisha v'am yishlokish afilu chalkam lo se'afar chametz. The pasuk says not only the part that goes on the mizbech, but the part that is eaten by the kohen also is not supposed to be baked with chametz. It's supposed to be made matzah. So there's no such choice. Ella ratza matzah ochla ratza cholot ochla. This is the pshat that more comes out with. That there's different ways of eating it. You might have thought that you could eat it matzah or you could eat it cholot. Cholot means that you put it into boiling water, like a bagel kind of a thing. You take the dough that you put it into boiling water, and you might think that you're allowed to eat the mincha like that. So it says no, you have to eat it matzos te'achel. But the Gemara doesn't understand how do you see that? And it's saying no, you're not allowed to eat it however you want to. If it would have been a regular flour and water that wasn't a mincha, you could do whatever you want. You could eat it matzah, you could eat it cholot. Cholot means this boiled in water. But now that it's a mincha, you have to do it matzah and you can't do cholot. How do you see in the word cholot, matzah, that it shouldn't be cholot? Hi cholot hechidami. What is this cholot? Is it matzah or not? I matzah hi, a matzah hi. Bi lo matzah hi, matzah sam rachmana. If it's a matzah, if it's called matzah, when you boil it in water, is it called a matzah or not? So if it is, then it should be good. It shouldn't be excluded from the Bible where it says matzos te'achel. And if not, then the pasuk says already that it should be matzos. But so why doesn't have to say a second time that it should be matzos? If the word if by boiling it, it's not called a matzah anymore, then you wouldn't need a special pasuk again to say that it shouldn't be chalot. We said it has to be a matzah. Matzah sam rachmana. Lo la'olam melacha matzahi olachi tana beikra la'akev. The reason why it says it two times, you have two times, pasuk says two times that it shouldn't be chalot. Even though chalot is a matzah, to say that it's ma'akev and it's not kosher. If you would eat it as a chalot, there wouldn't be a kosher mincha. It didn't do it the right way. I think there's something over here that I didn't understand. There's a Tosfos that says, I think it is Tosfos. Tosfos says hachtach alavi kmo shana lav la'akev la'akev the merchet teisi la'akev temo la'mitzvahu la'akev kloma devina matzah mali savalo chalot. I'm not sure. Tosfos doesn't say that. Tosfos doesn't seem to say that you want yotze the mitzvah of eating it. He just says that the Torah has to say it twice in order to say that it shouldn't be. It should be a real matzah, which means that it's not cholot. If it would be cholot, it would be called a matzah, but not a good matzah. Good matzah is only when it's cholot. When it's not cholot. Very, very matzahdik. And then the word just ends off just a few lines. That what are you saying? Cholot matzah? It says that it is considered matzah, but here it's not considered matzah. So as far as what is it considered matzah? And very nice, the Gemara comes into Hilchos Pesach, even though that's not the subject at all, but it comes to into Hilchos Pesach. That a person would be yotze the mitzvah of matzah if he would take the dough. Here it says in the Gemara, if you take the dough in the matzah bakery, you'd have the dough, you did it very fast, and nothing became chametz. And before you put it into the oven, you first put it into boiling water. And then you put it in. You made a bagel a little bit out of it. I'm not sure if that would be a real good bagel, but it says here that if you would put it into boiling water and then bake it, it is considered kosher matzah.
Wow.
No.
And that now Taisus has a kasha that it says in the Maseches Pesachim that it's not good. Taisus says, since you baked it in the oven after you boiled it, it's kosher matzah.
Right.
It says over there it's not good. The pasuk, the Gemara in the Pesachim Lamed Vav says that if you made a bagel, if you boiled the matzah, not to boil the matzah after it's baked, you took the dough and you boiled it. It says that it's not good. So Gemara says it is good. So Taisus says a few terutzim. Over there, if you didn't bake it, you just boiled it. You took the matzah, you took the dough, flour and water, you did it very fast, put it into boiled water, and now you won't eat it like that. What does it taste like if you did like that? Some kind of a matzah ball or some kind of a noodle, I'm not sure. But here it says, Taisus says, according to Gemara, if you would have put it into boiling water and then baked it, would have been kosher for matzah for the Leila Seder. Over there, it's only a problem if it's very big. Cholet gadol. Over there it says cholet ba'ashisha. Ashisha means a big one. Like I make a pizza pie. You make and the Agav in the poskim it says not to make an ashisha, not to make a big matzah. Someone has told me an interesting thing that there was somebody wanted to give to the gevirim, to the rich people that they support his yeshiva. He wanted to give them a nice. So when he gives them a big esrog, a big lulav, he gives them a big matzah. He made a matzah special, like a big pizza pie, 3 big matzahs. But it says, I told him that the halacha says not to do that. It's not considered lechamoni. So lachatchila, the Mishnah talks about even the evidence not good. So it's not such a nice present. It's supposed to be more only. You're not supposed to give the rich people that you see. It's very expensive. But here Taisha says that the problem. Here it says that cholet v'ashisha. Taisha says that the cholet is not the problem. The ashisha is the problem. Ashisha means a big matzah. Cholet means that it's boiled. Gemara says boiled is okay. And Taisha says that it's only a problem if it's a big and boiled. Not because of the cholet. That's the second teretz. And the third teretz says that if you made the dough of the matzah a thick dough, like we have thick doughs, so then it's not good even if you boiled it. But if it was a batter and then you boiled it and then you baked it, then Taisha says it is good. But it comes out interesting that according to 2 out of 3 twists of Taisha, you would be allowed to make boiled matzah as long as you baked it afterwards, and it's not so big. Interesting. And Allah didn't look into it. Yeah, no one does it. No one does it.
I just bought from Holy Bagel just now. I gave it to my son. To have potato bread.
Potato starch looks like pizza. Bread.
Right. So the pizza also looks like.
Yeah, it looks like pizza also. So it's made out of potato starch. Okay. See, it talks about if you'd have a matzah that was first boiled and then they baked it. So here it says it would be kosher. Okay.
So he told me from Holy Bagel. After I bought it, he says it's very, very dry right now.
Mm-hmm.
So he says you gotta, before you eat it, he says you have to warm it up again because right now it doesn't taste so good.
Okay, that's the end of the sugya today. Yes, everybody. Thank you. A good moed.
Tomorrow, regular.
Tomorrow is what? Thursday. Yom Tov.
Friday, we have a problem. What are we gonna do Friday?
Friday's Yom Tov. So usually, so we always miss out. But we're already 5 dot behind, so that'll be 6 dot behind. That's what we do. So we'll hope for the.
And what's the Shabbos?
What's the regular? Wow, what's the Yom Tov? Wow, everyone's putting away all the dishes. What are we gonna do? We learn. I don't know. Okay, we'll try. We'll see what happens.
Usually, I'll tell my kids that they have to help. I'll come home and I'll do whatever I can.
If we're not going to get together, I'll find out. If we can't, we can't. Like, if no one's going to come anyways, and then I'll try to find that. Okay, yes, everybody.
Listen, next week is not going to be a full week anyway. We're not going to do the second Seder.